Great to be with you for another Towards Understanding podcast. If you didn't know what Alagille Syndrome was, don't worry, I didn't either. I had to look that up. I had to understand it because Nikki Lee does have Alagille Syndrome, has had her whole life, in fact, as well as multiple other syndromes and disease and illness that she lives with. And that's part of her story. In fact, that is her story. What does it mean to live in this world where you get bullied at school because of this, where you really are isolated and are constantly different? What does it actually mean to have my identity now? Who am I? Am I just all of these illnesses and syndromes? Am I something more? She's got a remarkable story to share. Looking forward to having her chat with you in just a moment. Before we get there, please like, rate, review, share this podcast, follow it. It helps the algorithm get out to more and more people. And it's our heart to just share these stories with as many people as we can as we all head towards a better understanding. All right, let's chat with Nikki Lee. Thank you for taking the time to chat to us.
Thank you so much for having me, Clayton.
It is really wonderful to have you in. And you have been through so much in terms of your health in your life. And we're going to spend a little bit of time to go through that. But first of all, many people might not have heard of Alagille Syndrome. What is that?
So Alagille Syndrome for me is, since I was born, I was born with it. And the first symptoms is, so when babies are born, everyone knows they have jaundice, right?
Yes.
Yellowing of the skin and eyes. And for, every baby, it goes away quickly. But for me, it stuck on. And so my parents were concerned, I guess.
Yes.
Because it didn't go away. So they sort of sent me back to the hospital where I was born. And they did a lot of tests and checks. And they actually said that I had this condition. But to be sure, they sent me to the Royal Children's Hospital. Mm-hmm. And at the Royal Children's Hospital, I was again sent for a lot of checkups and tests. And then finally, they diagnosed me with Alagille Syndrome. Yeah. And for me, Alagille Syndrome affects my liver, my heart, my bones, vision, hearing, learning pace, physical development, and more. And I had a liver transplant almost 20 years ago. So This month is the 20th year.
What a celebration in that regard. Now, you mentioned a couple of times there, you said, for me. Does Alagille Syndrome, is it different for different people as they have it?
So I think the reason why I say for me is I feel like Alagille Syndrome has affected me not just physically, but in a personal level as I grew up. Mm-hmm. And it affected me greatly personally. Yeah. And in that way, I feel that it's more unique the way I experience Alagille Syndrome. Gotcha. So that's why I say for me.
Yes, gotcha.
Yeah,
gotcha.
I experience it in a different way.
Yeah. So I mean, you just sort of rattled off the list, but liver, heart, bones, vision, hearing, more aspects as well. That I mean, like that's some fundamental parts of what it means to live and to go about life generally. So let's talk a little bit about what it meant. First of all, before we even get to some of the hospitalizations and all of the incredible things that you had to go through, but what was it like from a child's perspective, being different? I mean, any time a child is a bit different, it always is, has its ups and its downs. What was that like for you?
Yes. So I remember when I was little, obviously, when I was a baby, toddler, I didn't fully understand what was happening yet. It was basically my parents, they understood what was happening. So when I was a baby and a toddler, it didn't affect me personally yet.
Yes.
So, but when I reached primary school age, I started to notice things. For example, going to the hospital constantly, seeing the doctor, going for blood tests, things like that, I guess. And because, like I mentioned before, I had jaundice, yellowing of my skin and my eyes, and then I noticed that people would stare at me in
Yes.
public.
Mm.
And so these were the little things that I noticed as a primary school girl. And slowly I started to realize that, oh, okay, I'm different.
Yeah.
You know, maybe I'm different. And soon enough, I knew I was the sick kid.
Yeah.
Yes.
What did that mean for your identity? And I suppose we might want to talk about that in a few different ways. Let's talk about it more as a child, first of all, and then later on as we go through, we might ask you that same question again, but how you look at it now. What did it mean to be, you framed it, the sick child as a kid? Did it change how you understood yourself by sort of just thinking about that's how other people were viewing you?
Yeah, so I didn't like it, and because mainly it was the one of it is the stares, getting a lot of stares from public people in the public. So that one I didn't like it. I remember I used to be really angry and thinking to myself, why are people looking at me? Have they never seen like a small Asian girl before? You know, do I look like an alien or something? So I didn't like that. And also when I was in primary school, I also was bullied.
Yeah, right.
And so those things sort of made me didn't want to be me, didn't want to be the sick kid. And I sort of blamed it on my sickness for being stared at, for being bullied in school. And so, yeah, I didn't like that identity. I didn't want to be me. I wanted to be anyone else but me.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, we will come back to that question. So we'll come back a bit later on because I think there's a different answer to what that is now. Let's talk about, you're in and out of hospitals then for a long, long time. And as you talked about, you had a liver transplant, you had a whole lot of various tests and various things constantly that you needed to be doing as well. Was the mindset then about you're sort of fighting this, or I'm just getting through this, or I'm trying to accept this as part of what my life is now? How did you sort of, in a mindset perspective, go through that time of in and out of tests and hospitals and doctors and so on and so forth?
I think when I was primary school aged, and also I would say high school, actually, okay, maybe when I was younger, I wasn't so focused on the hospital thing because there was a lot happening in school. I was getting bullied, and I was getting bullied, and I mean, I knew I was sick and I knew I was going to the hospital and all, but I think because of my personal experiences in school, and not, I guess, liking my own self, I was so focused on that, and in my heart, I was blaming my sickness for those experiences.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah.
And I think when I was younger, my whole world was just like, the school experiences was terrible, and growing up was just terrible, being bullied in school. I just wanted to have friends, I was like really focused on that. And so when I had my liver transplant, I was still 13, it was March, I was still 13 years old.
Yes.
I didn't even understood the whole
how big it was, in a sense.
How big it was the liver transplant would be.
Yeah, sure.
I think for me, and I just went in, and after the liver transplant, I wasn't even thinking about the liver transplant. I was thinking like, okay, this liver transplant is gonna change my life. Now I'm gonna look no more yellow, and then it's gonna be better in school. I'm gonna have friends in school. Things are gonna change. Yes. So but I mean, in the end, things didn't change in school. So I was back to oh, okay, life sucks again.
Yeah. I mean, it's a normal teenage thing to think through as well, right? To not be thinking about this big, massive liver transplant and focusing on that. it's so tough for so many, but then for you to have all of the physical struggles and then also what's happening at school and the bullying, it really does sort of shape us sometimes at times. How did you ensure that that sort of environment didn't actually shape who you are? And I'm wondering what role faith plays for you, your trust in Jesus. When did that actually start becoming something, a very big part of your life?
So, all right, let's go to the very beginning. The beginning where I started to understand about God and learning about Him, reading His stories, was Sunday school. And I still remember that day where my mom came home and she got us our first full-on children's Bible for me and my brother. And then my mom would get a lot of like VeggieTales or Donut Man, like those children's CDs, worship songs. And yeah, I learned my faith in church and at home. And I think during that time, it was just, I guess, learning about God, not yet experiencing yet, and not yet fully surrendering to Him. So it was just learning from when I was young. And I remember when I was maybe primary school age, when I was in Malaysia, I remember going to an Easter event, and the speaker or someone on stage was saying, if you want to give your life to Jesus, you just say it in your heart. And I did that quietly, but then I just did that and then that's about it,
Yes.
Nothing else happened. So I didn't fully grasp what's the meaning. So I just did that, and then as I grew up in high school, I attended church. I mean, our whole lives we attended church. So we would keep going to church, and I would keep learning about God. And I think the time that I really learned was when I was a high schooler, where I fully understood, relationship with God, and learning. Not just learning now. It's like now I'm learning how to experience it and apply it. So that was when I was a teenager or high schooler, and and also at home, my dad, he would tell us about. There was one time I remember he was saying, never blame God for anything, and I remember that, until now. And even things like my mom would teach me, if you have pain, if you feel like you're suffering, you just remember Jesus, on the cross suffering, and your pain will feel, I guess, less compared to Jesus' suffering. So things like that, I went into my head, and so I applied it. And when I was 21, that was the year where I was in the darkest place of my life, and I wanted to commit suicide. And I remember telling God, I was asking God to give up on me because I've given up on life. And fast forward, when He got me out of the dark place, I was so in awe. So I sort of experienced Him, I was in awe, and I couldn't believe that He got me out of the dark place. And that's just one testimony where made my faith grow. And then another short testimony is, during that time, I think, actually it was 2016, where some people in my life left, and I was wondering why, God put them in my life and then they took them away. They went to other places. And so 2016, I was asking God, why do you take these good Christian friends away from me? Now who am I going to talk to or rely on? And I sort of bumped into this devotion, Song of Songs devotion. And I remember just following it and practicing it. And then one day, as I was, I guess, applying Song of Songs, it hit me. Like I realized, God wanted God remove those people so that I will learn to rely on Him instead. Like not on human beings. I mean, it's okay to like, talk to your pastor and all, but like we are supposed to like rely on God first, and from then on, I noticed my relationship with God was more personal, was more intimate, because before that, when I was talking to God, it was just always on the surface. It's like, oh yeah, God, today was a good day. I hope tomorrow will be a good day.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
But now it's more intimate. It's like I just tell Him every single feeling and emotion.
Yeah.
And that's because He removed those friends.
Yeah.
I learned to have a more personal and intimate relationship with Him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My guest on Towards Understanding is Nikki Lee. She's the author of the book Alagille Girl, a rare patient with an extraordinary life. And we're going to be back with Nikki in a couple of minutes' time, talking a bit more about what does it actually mean to live with this syndrome now, and how does she view her identity now. We were talking about that a bit earlier on. What has changed in her world and in her life? What could we take from her story as we step into our own lives? That's on the way next here on Towards Understanding.
Share your brand, your event, your message across 90 Christian radio stations and major cities in Australia and New Zealand by sponsoring Towards Understanding, hosted by Clayton Bielen. More than 210,000 people tune into Towards Understanding each week, and with just one sponsorship, you'll reach this immense engaged audience. Find out more about this exciting and unique opportunity now on the sponsorship page at positivemedia.com.au.
We've been hearing about Alagille Syndrome. You've been talking to us about that, the fact that it does impact and cause so much of your world to be impacted. And you talked about the fact that it's everything from the liver. You've had a liver transplant to the skin, to all sorts of areas of your world. And it's sort of an ongoing condition as well, isn't it, Nikki? This is not something that you sort of go, well, I've now got a treatment, or I've got a transplant, it's now done. This is something that you do live with every day.
Yes, I do live with it every single day. It's a chronic, long-term, lifelong. And, although I was born with just the Alagille syndrome, but currently I do have more than Alagille syndrome.
That's right.
So it's a lifelong thing.
Yeah. Could you talk just a little bit about, is there pain with that? Is there other aspects that go with it, or is it just the constant, so there's a drain and so you have to constantly get it checked and fixed, or whatever else it might be? Could you talk to us a little bit about what does it mean day to day to have both Alagille syndrome and, as you said, you have other aspects of your world from a physical perspective, especially? Could you share a bit about that?
So day to day, it's like, so recently my vision has changed a lot, I would say. I recently found out that one of my eye is blind. It was in 2021.
Yep.
And so I've been, I guess day to day is like, because I have to be more patient with, when you are blind, I guess it takes more time to do things.
Yeah.
You have to be more patient, and there's a lot of things that sometimes you can miss, sometimes that you can't see things. And for me is, for example, typing on the laptop or on the phone, it takes longer. And then when it comes to, because I have a hip and knee condition, a brain and spine condition as well, which was diagnosed in 2024. And I do live with pain. So I do have pain as well. Like it comes and goes, the pain. So like there's pain in my calf or knee or hips or hands or arms or at the back of my head. And also with the liver, currently I'm still taking a lot of medicine for my liver, because in 2023 I had another liver rejection episode. And they put me on a lot more medications that year, and they haven't taken away those medications yet.
Gotcha.
So I'm still taking a lot of medications for the liver, and Also, yes, hospital appointments,
Yes.
blood tests. So these are and also I do get fatigue, tired day to day. I nap a lot. I love to nap.
Yes. Well, I was just thinking, I'm like, it's remarkable you're here now in the studio and so bubbly and so, because I was like, you have every right to sort of be like, well, I'm never going to leave bed. I'm never going to leave the couch, right?
Yeah,
like
yes.
there's so where do you find that that ability to say, actually, I am going to not let that sort of define who I am and push through?
I think it's because this one I believe that God put it in my heart to have this passion to share my story.
Yes.
And so I guess this passion, sometimes it can what's the word?
So overcome all of
overcome
the other,
yeah. So I have this passion to share my story, passion to speaking, and so I have this like in my heart, to just want to tell people, how what I've been through and what I'm going through and how God is helping me. And if it helps someone, it will be, amazing.
Yeah.
And at the end of my book, I mentioned, the last sentence, I was like writing it. I was actually like writing it to God, saying, if every experience, every tear, every pain, has been gone through without, it's not, gone in vain, then it's all worth it. Yeah. So everything that I've experienced, if it helps people, if there's a purpose, there's a meaning, then it's all worth it. Yeah.
That is a remarkable thing to live with in terms of choosing that, Nikki, because there's a lot of people who don't choose that. It's like, well, it's just going to be about me and getting through. That is truly an incredible care for others. Let's sort of head down that path. Before we get to that, we said that we want to come back to an identity question, because I know you sort of share in your book and you shared then as well that you talked about at the start. Well, here I was the girl who looked yellow, and I was teased and I was bullied at school, and I didn't really want to keep living. I didn't want to. I had no friends. And I didn't want to be the sick kid. And yet I know that in many senses, and what you just shared then too, is that you've actually embraced the fact that this is what God is allowing you to go through. And that's what you're hoping to share. I'm wondering, did you ever have the moments of questioning God and saying, well, why me? Like, why? Like, first of all, one of these things, let alone this and this and this. Like, how did you get to that place, I suppose, of saying, actually, I do fully own what I have to share Jesus' love with others? But I'm imagining there's a fair few questions along the way.
Yeah, so there's been times where I do ask God, why me? Why am I the sick one? Why not someone else stronger? And, I have 2 other siblings, and 1 older brother, 1 younger sister, and they're both completely normal, healthy, and, they've done well educationally. They both did law, and they both did double degrees in like uni. So of course, I've asked God, why are they so successful, and like I'm like this, why am I the sick one? And I question him, and also I guess sometimes I've also like told him, if it weren't for my sickness, I would be, because I'm 33 at the moment, so I would be like other people, other people in their 30s, like married, have a career, a job, children, family, kids, able to drive.
Yes.
I've asked God that, because of my sickness, like I can't do any of that stuff. And when I first wished that I was normal was in primary school. That was one day, the teacher was giving out this fun activity, I guess. Like there were a lot of fun questionnaires in the paper, and she was just giving it out to all of us. And I remember one of the question was, if you had 3 wishes, what would you wish for? And my primary school self straight away knew what I wanted. I wrote down without even thinking, I wish I was normal. Yeah. So that was the first time in my heart that I wished I was normal. Yeah. And that was when I was a primary school girl. Yes. And then when I was I want to say my 20s, so it was many years, for many years I blamed my sickness, and for many years I wanted to be normal, until one day in my 20s, I was listening to there were 3 things that happened. One was, it's not in order. One was a song that I heard. Mm-hmm. It's about, God doesn't make mistakes. Yep. And then another one was a devotion, a Bible devotion, where it was saying, we are created, fearfully and wonderfully made, that Bible verse. Yes. And then in church one day, I heard the pastor was saying something along those lines, Mm-hmm. And then so those 3 things, and before this happened, I always thought in my mind that I would always wish that I was normal until my dying breath. Yes. I will always wish I was normal. But then that day when I was in my 20s, after those 3 things that happened, God completely changed my mind. And at that moment or that week, I stopped wishing that I was normal. And because, I learned that if God was okay with my sicknesses, then I will be okay with it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
It's incredible. Nikki, I love that you've really, you found your identity beyond the illness, right? Like this is what you had, and you found that in God, but then also in who you are, right? Like that actually to share your story is part of what your job is, as it were, in this life. Could we, as we sort of start heading to wrap up, for somebody who perhaps, that they're not going through the same amount of things that you're going through or have had to go through, but they're feeling perhaps stuck in some way, or they're feeling like something else is their identity, and they don't want it to be like that. They're not quite sure where that hope and that positivity is. I'd imagine you'd certainly be encouraging them to find out about Jesus. But what other things and what aspects of that would you maybe be saying to somebody who's not going through the same thing, but they're going through whatever their struggle is?
So that's a good question. I think, for me, what I realized from my physical sicknesses and disabilities is physical sickness reflects, what humanity is like spiritually. And, I may be physically broken and sick, but people who don't have a physical sickness, they have a spiritual sickness. So, not just for someone like me who is physically sick, I gotta take care of my spiritual health, but I think everyone should take care of their spiritual health. And their spiritual health and well-being, just like how, I try to take care of my physical health.
I think there's also an aspect that you've touched on briefly, and maybe we should just spend a little bit of time before we finish the interview on, and that is, I don't think God created any of us to be by ourselves either. There is something connected to others, and certainly you've had a community around you throughout this time, especially your family as well. What's the importance of, when things are tough, whether it be in your mind or in your body, to have community around? Have you seen as the value of community?
Yes, I think for me, my community would be, because I grew up in in church family, and I wouldn't say friends from school because
yeah, well, we've talked about that. That's right.
I was bullied, so my community is church.
Yes.
The church people, cell groups, Bible study, Sunday school, and people who prayed for me.
Yeah.
And, all my life actually, like, people have prayed for me for my sickness, for me to be healed. And I'm really, really grateful for that. But I would say, even though those prayers haven't been answered, but I believe that those prayers did help, because even though I haven't been physically sick, I'm physically healed, I have been spiritually strong, and I thank God for that, and I thank God for, those people who prayed for me. And so these are the, I guess I would say, are the community that supported me spiritually. Yeah. And yes, the church people. Yeah.
Nikki, it's been wonderful hearing some of your story. We can't cover off everything which is in the book. That's why you wrote the book, right? But it's been wonderful to just have a bit of a conversation with you. And thank you for the challenge and the encouragement that I am sure you've given to so many people. We so appreciate you coming in.
Yes, thank you so much again for having me, Clayton. I'm really happy to be here.
The author of the book, Alagille Girl, a rare patient with an extraordinary life, Nikki Lee, has been my guest on Towards Understanding.